Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Sitting in for Pinky Webb, I'm Ruth Cabal. Today on the program, Typhoon Quinta maintains its strength as it crosses Luzon. It's expected to bring more rains throughout the day. A senator vows to go after the protector of the multi-billion peso pastillas scheme at the Immigration Bureau. And from pastillas scam to thousands of Chinese retirees and workers in the country, senators warn of soft invasion and a national security threat. Also, after its controversial post on actress Liza Soberano, AFP official Lieutenant General Antonio Parlade stands by his statement and sees no reason to apologize. Senator Risa Hontiveros joins us live. Thousands either evacuated or are stranded as Typhoon Quinta continues to cross southern Luzon. Quinta already made landfall several times, leaving over 1,500 stranded in various seaports in Bicol, Calabarzon, Mimaropa, and eastern Visayas. Close to 2,000 people were also evacuated over the weekend from Ginobatan, Albay, and Canaman, Camarines Sur ahead of the typhoon. Pag-asa says Quinta is expected to exit Philippine territory by tomorrow. The Bureau of Immigration says it found discrepancies between the statements of assets, liabilities, and net worth and the salaries of some personnel who were linked to the so-called pastillas bribery scheme. But immigration spokesperson Dana Sandoval tells CNN Philippines the Justice Department still has to determine whether these were indeed discrepancies, since the Bureau just submitted its findings to the department for comment. The Bureau also says its internal investigation has expanded to look into almost 100 personnel. The pastilla scheme first surfaced in February. It involves allegedly allowing Chinese nationals to enter the country without background checks in exchange for grease money. Let's go straight to the source of the story, Senator Risa Hontiveros. Good morning, Senator, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me, Ms. Ruth. Good morning, too.
Senator, so your Committee on Women and Children has conducted 7 hearings into this so-called pastillas bribery scheme. What do you think for you is the most, should I say, exasperating or most explosive thing that you've uncovered, and where do you go from there?
I think the most explosive and exasperating, Ms. Ruth, is simply how this ugly story, beginning from Pogo-related prostitution, has continued to reveal related revenue streams in this business model, which has effectively turned the Bureau of Immigration into a one-stop shop of corruption. So mula Pogo-related prostitution na iugnay sa human trafficking, nung pumasok si Alex Chong, nakita namin yung pastilla scam. Now this has been linked also with the help of Dale Ignacio to the visa upon arrival or VUA scam. And the NBI, Ms. Ruth, now says it's investigating not just inbound human trafficking, but outbound human trafficking as well. So where do we go from here? Well, yung mga arkitekto ng Department Order, DOJ, Department Order 41, ang gusto naming ipatawag sa susunod na hearing kasi yan yung order na siyang naging legal basis ng VUA o visa upon arrival, and which apparently has given a whole order or system to this very cynical business model at the BI.
When you say yung mga officials involved dito sa VUA, sino-sino po ito? Because the last time you already had former Justice Secretary Aguirre. Sino pa ho kaya ang ipapatawag nyo?
Well, we had, even before questioning former Justice Secretary Aguirre, we already had identified by the whistleblowers and resource persons itong mag-amang Marinas. Former Ports Operations Division Head Mark Red Marinas and his father, Maynardo Marinas, former head of the Special Operations and Communications Unit or SOCU. Two positions, Ms. Ruth, which are supposed to check and balance each other. Pero sa ganitong conflict of interest, paano mangyayari yon? And as it turned out, that Department Order 41 issued by former Justice Secretary Aguirre opened the floodgates to very lax oversight on the VOA, and as I mentioned earlier, led to an institutionalization of that one-stop shop of corruption right in the BI. Kaya siguro tumagal ng ganitong katagal, several years, and with such brazenness, which has led us to question, is there someone even higher, a protector, than these masterminds, bosses, yung mag-amang Marinas? Nakita din natin, Ms. Ruth, recently, the SALN of one of those in the first group of 20 already charged in court by the NBI, Fidel Mendoza, who served as a right-hand person to Red Marinas in the Ports Operation Division. Unbelievable, no? Security guard ang kanyang item. But may ipinakita siyang SALN na 10 million pesos. So kung nung una parang halos hindi ka panipaniwala that this corrupt syndicate could have accumulated and estimated up to 40 billion pesos. Well, with that SALN of a security guard of 10 million, mas nagiging kapanipaniwala na, Ms. Ruth.
Before natin busisiin yung mga nakita doon sa mga SALN, because may statement na rin dyan ng Bureau of Immigration. Senator, gusto ko lang balikan yung sinabi niyo about, having amassed nearly 40 billion pesos, and you were saying it has become like a business model. May binanggit pa kayo during the hearings na systematic siya, and it's like a pyramiding scheme. Can you tell us more about that?
The pyramiding, Ms. Ruth, was confirmed even by the NBI itself, because it seems that there are really higher ranking officials, operators of this scheme giving orders to the lower ranking members of the pyramid. Sinabi rin ng mga whistleblowers na sina Alex Chong at Dale Ignacio na sila sa loob ng BI ay mga foot soldiers. May hating 20% dun sa pastillas scheme, pero yung 80% daw pumupunta dun sa mga matataas, yung mga boss o mastermind at yung inaalam namin hanggang ngayon na protector. The VOA, the visa upon arrival itself, allegedly, all those ill-gotten proceeds go straight to the officials in the office. So of the 40 billion, 30 billion from the 3 million or so Chinese arrivals who we believe paid 10,000 pesos each in pastillas bribe. And then 2 billion from the 160,000 VOA issuances, each holder paying 12,000 pesos. And unfortunately, this VOA apparently becoming the travel document of choice for trafficking women inbound to prostitution in the Philippines. Tapos itong huling iniimbestiga na ng NBI, yung posibilidad na may sindikato rin, human trafficking Filipinas to other countries for prostitution there. Kaya yun yung mga piyesang ina-assemble ng aming inquiry at ng NBI na rin, Ms. Ruth. And the Ombudsman itself is looking into the alleged boast of Red Marinas that they have a contact inside the Ombudsman, which I'm sure Ombudsman Samuel Martires will not allow if and when that is confirmed and the person identified. So ito yung mga revenue streams nila, Ms. Ruth, which leads our committee to believe that indeed they may have amassed already 40 billion pesos.
Si Ombudsman Martires has already said na he doubts nga daw na posibleng may kakonsyaba doon sa, or may contact doon sa loob ng Ombudsman, but still they're looking into that, no? So you're also saying, Senator, na you want to identify protectors or yung mga backers. Sa tingin niyo po ba sa ang agencies posibleng galing ang mga ito, and how high could it go?
Could be within the BI itself, Ms. Ruth, or its mother department, which is the Department of Justice. Kaya patuloy naming tinatanong si former Justice Secretary Aguirre dahil sila yung secretary nung inappoint sa kanilang mga posisyon ang mag-amang Marinas in 2016. Sila rin ang naglabas noong 2017 niyang Department Order 41, which opened the floodgates not only to Chinese tourists into our country, kasi yun naman yung original na intensyon ng Department Order, Ms. Ruth, but given the very lax oversight which followed, parang nasilip tuloy ito ng mga kawatan at nabutasan. So he remains in a way a person of interest in the minds of the committee as far as searching for the protector nitong mag-amang Marinas.
You mean that's former Secretary Guevara?
No, former Secretary
Aguirre, sorry, Aguirre. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, but
I
he
do
was
appreciate current Secretary, Justice Secretary Guevara, who has also recently said that his department will continue their own investigation into the Pastilla scheme.
But from what I remember dun sa initial statement ni former Secretary Aguirre, he was saying na the VOA was to bring in more tourists, na request din daw ni Tourism Secretary before, Teo. And also, he was saying na may ganito naman sa ibang bansa. You have VOA in other countries.
Indeed, there are so-called VUAs in other countries, pero naitanong ko sila and he wasn't able to give a satisfactory answer during the hearing, considering that there are so many foreign nationals na dumadalaw dito sa atin na libre nga walang fee yung kanilang mga visa. Bakit kailangan pang patawan o hingian ng fee yung visa upon arrival ng mga Chino? And then as it unfolded, the oversight on the issuance of our own visa upon arrival or VUA for Chinese nationals was so lax that eventually it seems that 160,000 VUA holders paid 12,000 pesos each. Kasama na po yung mga travel agencies na, believe it or not, in-accredit para mag-issue nitong mga travel documents ng ating republika. At pinakamapait, Ms. Ruth, kalaunan, apparently this VUA became the document of choice to traffic women in. Para nilagyan ng piring ang mata ng BI so that red flags, which traditionally they would use to rescue suspected victims of trafficking bound for prostitution, such red flags as single women traveling alone for the first time. Ngayon parang nabulag sila doon. And apparently that became the document of choice for foreign women trafficked into the Philippines for prostitution in Chinese-only employees of POGO prostitution rings here.
Okay, Senator, we'll talk more about that. And Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana tells military officials to exercise care when linking personalities to communist organizations. That's after he met with Lieutenant General Antonio Parlade on his statement concerning actress Liza Soberano. After the break, Senator Hontiveros will share her thoughts on this red tagging controversy. The Source will be right back. Stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today is Senator Risa Hontiveros. Senator, I just want to go back to your statement earlier about naman yung discrepancies, what the Bureau of Immigration is saying as discrepancies in the SALNs of their employees. We were talking about the security guard na 14,000 ang salary a month but 10 million pesos yung sa SALN niya. Bakit kaya nagkakaganito? I mean, were you able to trace this person?
Yes, in fact, Mr. Fidel Mendoza, Ms. Ruth, is one of the first batch of 20 already charged in court by the NBI. Isa siya sa 19 na tauhan ng BI at isang travel agency owner-operator. So, nakakapagtaka talaga, no? And it came out in the hearings, he has that salary grade, he has that corresponding salary, pero meron silang SALN na 10 million pesos. At kasama din sila sa mga photographs na nakita namin ng naglalakbay sa mga foreign trips, both in official capacity pero kasama nung kanilang pamilya at kasama din nung mag-amang Marinas sa mga photos ng mga pag-iinom, pagkain sa mga high-end clubs at lounges. And kasama din dun sa photos ng nahinarap nung isang hearing namin ni Mr. Ramon Tulfo dun sa tinatanong nilang pag-deliver di umano ng mga duffel bag sa isang helicopter sa isang lalawigan dun daw sa protector ng mag-amang Marinas. So these are really loose ends that don't seem to tie tightly together in a knot kapag pinag-isipan natin ang isang security guard di umano sa BI.
Are you satisfied with what the BI is doing na looking into yung conducting lifestyle checks, even yung NBI with filing charges, recommending prosecution of up to now 40, ano? 40 na yung sinabi nyo, abot na, no?
Ms. Ruth, opo. Sabi ni NBI Special Action Unit Head Attorney Dongalio, sa tansya nila, higit 4 na po ang kakasuhan eventually. I'm even more confident that our Senate Committee inquiry will yield concrete fruit dahil nakikipagtulungan kami pati sa ganung mga institusyon, ang NBI, ang Office of the Ombudsman nga, ang Department of Justice itself. So the BI is really the agency in the hot seat right now, Ms. Ruth, kung seryoso sila sa paglinis, no, sa wakas ng kanilang ahensya. Ngayon ang panahon na gawin iyon. And I even have a message for those others involved in this pastilla scheme or the VUA and worst of all in the outbound human trafficking. Kung nanonood sila at nakikinig, may panahon pa po kayo, no, na tulad ni na Alex Chong at Dale Ignacio tumulong sa aming komite at sa mga ahensya ng gobyerno, linisin ang BI at patunayan na hindi one-stop shop ng korupsyon ng ating mga institusyon.
Senator, yung current leadership at the Bureau of Immigration with Commissioner Jaime Morente, how do you assess the performance now? Because we're talking about nag-start to ng 2017, di ba po? But right now?
Well, when I said that the BI is the agency in the hot seat or hot spot, ang pinakapinuno niyan ay walang iba kundi si Commissioner Morente. Kaya't mula nung simula ng pagdinig ng aming komite, I have always told him, Sir, you are the one most of all in the spotlight as the leader of the agency. Kung seryoso ang inyong ahensya na linisin ang BI once and for all, nasa sa inyo talaga ang pinakamabigat na responsibilidad. And so far, Ms. Ruth, I have sensed his cooperation with the committee, and I'm sure that the NBI and the Office of the Ombudsman, the DOJ itself, can very well speak for themselves as far as Commissioner Morente is concerned. At inaasahan ko yung kanilang 100% cooperation hanggang matapos ang aming inquiry at magpatuloy na ang mga kaso as filed by our law enforcement and investigative agencies.
Okay, Senator, moving on to another topic, itong medyo mainit din itong red tagging of celebrities allegedly by military officials. Nagkaroon kayo ng palitan ni General Antonio Parlade over his Facebook post, and I remember you giving a statement na parang sinasabi nyo, hintayin nyo na lang pagharap niya sa Commission on Appointments because you will be there. And sinagot niya na rin po kayo, no? Don't threaten them daw with yung pagharap sa CA, and that wala daw siyang interest na maging Chief of Staff.
Don't threaten. Who was threatening? Ang bawat AFP official o government official na humaharap sa Commission on Appointments ay may opening statement, lalo na yung mga AFP. At si General Parlade mismo ay yun ang kanilang bukang bibig nung unang humarap sila sa Commission on Appointments, na humaharap sila sa amin bilang pagkilala sa prinsipyo ng civilian supremacy over the military. Wala silang interes na humarap ulit sa amin sa CA. Well, tignan natin, dahil pag inappoint sila sa iba pang at mas mataas na posisyon, yun talaga ang proseso. Haharap talaga sila sa CA. The issue, Ms. Ruth, is simply that red tagging of Liza Soberano, Catriona Gray, Angel Locsin, and a host of organizations without evidence is simply ungentlemanly. At kahit si Secretary Lorenzana ng DND ay binigyang importansya itong usapin ng ebidensya kapag naghaharap ng ganyang mga kabigat na alegasyon. The General said that I probably did not read his full statement in its proper context. I just want to be categorical, Ms. Ruth. Of course, I read his statement several times over at wala akong nakitang bahagi doon na katanggap-tanggap. Simpleng hindi dapat tinatakot tayo mga kababaihan kapag naninindigan para sa ating karapatan at nananawagan sa mga kapwa kababaihan na ipagtanggol din ang ating karapatan. In fact, all persons, including men, including generals, should respect women's human rights and stand with us when we are upholding our rights. Yung mga salita niya, yung kanyang mga aksyon ay isang kahihiyan sa kanilang ranggo at pati sa Philippine Military Academy. Inaasahan natin na yung ating mga opisyal sa militar, lalo na kung galing sa PMA, ay magiging tapat sa motto ng akademya, no? Courage, integrity, loyalty. At sabi ko, opo, paghandaan nila humarap ulit sa Commission on Appointments. Kung sinabi nilang hindi na sila interesado ma-promote sa mas mataas, hindi na siya harap sa CA, well, tingnan natin. So simply, no, to not just to him but anyone who is engaged in similar behavior, stop accusing anyone if you don't have evidence. The good defense secretary said as much. At sa mga kabaro natin na sina Liza at Catriona at Angel, lahat tayong mga babae na nagsasalita, huwag tayong matatakot na depensahan ang ating mga sarili. And likewise sa mga kabaro naman ng general, nananawagan pa rin ako na igalang ang mga karapatan nating mga babae at tumindig sa tabi natin kapag atin namang pinagtatanggol ang ating mga karapatan.
Senator, recently, Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana met with General Parlade, and virtually he echoed General Parlade's statement na what he meant daw was to warn and caution the celebrities in joining or advocating alleged fronts of the CPP-NPA, and that they were not, the military officials were not the ones who red tagged these celebrities.
Well, I appreciate the first statements of Secretary Lorenzana. As for warning or sa salita ng general, educating, hindi kailangan ng ganyang condescension. Ang tayong mga babae na nasa hustong, lalo na't nasa hustong gulang at gumaganap ng mga responsableng propesyon, artista man o aktivista man o kung ano pa man, are well within our capacities and rights to assess kung ano yung ating sariling advokasya at mga salita at gawain, lalo na sa usapin ng karapatan nating mga babae. As for, again, accusing this or that organization of this or that, that is, as the good secretary himself at first said, that is a matter of evidence. At bawat organisasyon at lalo na bawat individual tulad natin can very well speak for ourselves.
We'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today is Senator Risa Hontiveros. Senator, let me go back to the issue of Chinese tourists in the country. You were questioning the data from Philippine Retirement Authority that says almost 28,000 young Chinese tourists retired in the country, some of them as young as 35 years old. Your colleague, Senator Gordon, was saying this is a threat to national security. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I haven't actually questioned that particular issue, Ms. Ruth, but I would share the concern of Senator Dick. I saw Senator Nancy has also taken up this issue. Dun sa konteksto talaga, Ms. Ruth, na bakit ang dami-daming mga turistang Chino na pumasok dito sa atin since 2017. Of the BI's records of a total 4 million, mas marami pa yun sa buong populasyon ng Quezon City, Ms. Ruth. So, nakakatawag pansin talaga. At sa konteksto nung patuloy na pangaagaw ng China sa ating teritoryo sa West Philippine Sea, yung patuloy na paninira niya sa ating marine resources doon. Ngayon, yung papasok daw siya sa joint exploration daw ng oil at gas reserve sa sarili nating exclusive economic zone, yung panghaharas, pambubuli niya sa mga mangingisdang Pilipino, and that's just in the water, Ms. Ruth. On land, we have all these POGO-related social problems and crimes, lalo na laban sa ating mga kababaihan at kabataan. And indeed, as Senator Dick have noticed, what are people as young as 35 doing, allegedly retiring here in the Philippines? Tayo nga yung edad ng senior citizenship at edad ng pagreretiro sa mga civilian positions at least ay 60 or 65, di ba? So kalahating edad lang yung 35. It can't be helped na any reasonably minded person ay mag-aalala at iuugnay ito sa usapin ng pambansang seguridad. Oh, and speaking of the national security, Ms. Ruth, also that live issue about bakit yung third telco na 40% owned and that 40% owned completely by the Chinese government, ibig sabihin yung Chinese Communist Party, ay makapagpapatayo ng cell sites sa loob ng sarili nating armed forces camp. So, kumbaga hindi nababawasan yung ating pagkabahala, kundi parang padagdag ng padagdag.
So what can we expect from you, Senator, regarding more of these issues?
Certainly, magpapatuloy yung aming Senate Committee on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality. Ang susunod na hakbang ay tawagin yung mga arkitekto ng Department Order 41 na naging legal basis para sa visa upon arrival na mukhang pinagkakitaan na rin to the tune of an estimated 2 billion pesos at naging visa of choice para mag-traffic in ng mga babae, trafficked women bound for prostitution here in the Philippines. At sisilipin din namin yung iniimbestiga na ng NBI na posibleng isa pang sindikato or baka parehong sindikato itong lahat, Ms. Ruth, also engaged in outbound human trafficking of Filipinas for prostitution abroad. Actually, we're coming back to the very first problem we looked at. Why my committee began these hearings. Yung reklamo nung batang Karina na pinrostitute dito. Yung reklamo ni Miss Ivy na taga Taiwan na halos tinraffic dito. Eventually, she was forced to work in an illegal pogo. So itong mga issue talaga ng trafficking at prostitution. So kukumpletuhin na namin yung drawing nitong sindikato na may ganitong business model na ginawang one-stop shop of corruption ang BI.
Okay, thank you very much to Senator Risa Hontiveros, and thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Ruth Cabal. You're watching CNN Philippines.